Okay. Hi, Lauren. It's good to see you.
Hi, thank you so much, Mr. Arlington, for having me. Great to be back.
Yeah, so today is the third installment in a series of parent education sessions we've been doing, and they've received really positive feedback. So we're really appreciative that you took the time to share your expertise and your thinking with our school community.
My absolute pleasure.
Yeah, so in the first session, we talked a lot about the ways in which, as parents and adults, we can control technology instead of having technology control us. In the second session, you really focused or honed in on how to raise critical thinkers and sort of happy children. And in this third session, we took you up on your suggestion to poll the community to see what questions they may have about parenting or raising teens or technology. And so we have a bank of questions here. I have a bank of questions here that I'm happy to ask you and hopefully have you answer, and we can share out with the community at large.
Terrific. That sounds great. They were great questions, and I have a lot of great tips and strategies to share.
Great. But in case anyone didn't have the opportunity who's watching today to join our first two sessions, I'm happy to say a little bit more about who you are and your background.
Thank you.
For the community, Lauren is a licensed psychotherapist and the founder of Wellbeing Therapy Center with locations in Montville and Short Hills. Lauren and her staff provide individual, family, and group therapy and have helped thousands of children, teens, and families make important changes to improve their quality of life. As a mother, therapist, business owner, and community thought leader, Lauren combines her experience and her studies to formulate programs so that our communities can gain important information and practical strategies through presentations like this one. So thanks again, Lauren, and we're happy to have you.
Great to be here.
So the first question that I wanted to ask that a parent posed was, how do parents go about reining in their child's social media use when they haven't had limits or structures previously? And
Mhm.
then this idea that that seems harder to do, right? To rein things in than maybe to loosen up control. That speaks to the
Right.
teacher in me that knows it's important to establish routines and procedures at the beginning of the year with my students because it's harder to put them in place later. But if I don't
Right.
have them, I still realize I need them. And how do I sort of make those adjustments in real
Yep.
time?
Great question. I love this question because this parent is saying, how do I rein it in? And that's exactly what you need to be thinking. We're not talking about, going from 6 hours a day of tech and social media to one. That's not going to happen. We just want to rein it all in a little bit. Um, I also want to, share with the community that the Surgeon General of the U.S. put out an advisory report just last week pointing out to parents, to policymakers and technology companies that we know that social media and tech is harmful to our children and teens, right? This is not just like we think it might be. We now know from the years of evidence-based psychological research, and also as parents observing our children. And so it's something to take really seriously. And it also gives parents that ability to say to kids, look, I love you. I'm here to protect you, guide you, and help you. The Surgeon General of the United States just said, I got to talk to you about this. And so we want to. And that's what has to happen first, a preliminary discussion. Sit down with your kids and teens and said, look, I've been thinking about this. I've been reading. I just, read about the Surgeon General's report. And I want to implement some changes at home in the way that we use tech, when we use it, and how much. We're not going to not use it at all. That's not realistic. Tech is a part of our lives and it will be a part of our lives forever. And then here's the key, and we talked about this during the parenting program. Ask them some questions like, what do you think about that? Do you think that's going to be helpful to you? And you will be so surprised when you ask kids and teens, they get it. They feel it. A lot of teens that I talk to say like, yeah, I know I'm on too much, right? So you have that conversation with them. What do you think about it? Do you have any concerns? Do you have ideas? And then it's about sketching out a plan. So you have that preliminary discussion. You let your kids know, look, this is coming soon. We're going to have a plan. And actually in the Surgeon General's report, they called it a family media plan, but it basically means we're going to have, like a little contract or some rules around how we want to use tech in our homes. so that we can use it for all the great productivity, creativity benefits, fun, entertainment benefits. But that's so that, we're protecting our kids' mental health, so that they can thrive. So we have that preliminary conversation. And then I recommend that parents decide together what they want to implement, right? So if you are a 2-parent household, you sit down together and you say, all right, what should we do here? We want to set a 2 or 3 hour limit per day on technology outside of schoolwork, right? We want to set a 30-minute limit on TikTok, a 30-minute limit on Instagram, right? And those are some really clear, good, guidelines. We're going to start using the screen time settings on our kids' iPhone, and we're going to shut it off at 9 o'clock at night, right? So you make a couple of these key little decisions together. All right, then you go back as a family. Look, this is what mom and dad or whoever's in the home as the parents want to do. This is what we're planning to do. Hear what the kids have to say. Maybe you make small adjustments. Maybe they say, yeah, but on Fridays we have this, and this, and we just want to do this with our friends. And maybe you adjust, right? That skill of negotiation that teenagers in particular are really practicing, you want to give them that opportunity to do that. So maybe you negotiate a little bit. And then you implement this plan. Write it out, make it pretty short, bunch of bullet points. You could have everyone in the house sign it, and hang it up, where everyone can see it. And I think that's really the best approach. You're doing it as a family, and then you're committing to it and making it known. If you want some more guidance and help about, the specific, sort of rules or specific conversations, a great resource called waituntil8th.org. And they have parent resources and guides on their site if you just want to print something out and circle the things you like or cross out the things you don't like. And so, the other thing, Mr. Arlington, that I want to add is while you're creating a family media plan, it's also a great time to talk about what do they want to do? What do your kids want to do instead of some of this additional tech time? So instead of just keeping watching YouTube or Netflix, or instead of scrolling on the endless feed, on TikTok, what do you want to do instead? So I encourage families to also make a list of fun activities, help your kids figure that out. Well, I want to go hang out with my friends in person. That's huge, really important. I want to, go on a family hike, or, how about a family day at the beach? Let your kids talk about what they want to do instead. And, that really complements this piece well, because that's the whole point. Why are we saying we need to limit tech? So that we give our kids the other opportunities that help them to thrive mentally, emotionally, and socially.
I love this idea about having kids be part of making the plan. I've been talking a lot lately with teachers around this idea that kids are political beings just because they're in the world, right? So giving them some agency, still saying, I'm the mom or the dad or the the grown up in the house who's in charge, but you can have some say in the process, and let's figure out what that may look like together. That makes good sense.
Absolutely. And when you do that, your kids feel heard
Right.
and respected, and especially with teenagers, they want to feel respected, right? They want to feel
Yeah.
like you care about what they have to say. They want to feel seen. So in doing all this, you're going to improve the relationship you have with your kids. They're going to be more likely to listen to you in general in life, And so this idea, it's not a democracy because parents make the final decision, right?
Right.
But it can be a collaborative, connecting experience. So I love that you pointed that out. Thank you.
Yeah. So speaking of not democracy, the next question speaks to my dad self. Um, so a mom wrote to us and said, I'm looking for tips for helping a 9-year-old deal with feelings of anger when a parent or teacher sets limits or tells them no when they want to do something.
Great question. How do you help our kids when they have such big feelings? So first, I think we just have to remember that children's brains are not fully developed, right? The brain fully develops in our early 20s. So before that, the child's mind is very good at freaking out and getting emotional, not good at calming down. right? So the emotional center of the brain is already formed and does great, but the logical center of the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, is not fully developed. So it is totally normal for children and teens to have big emotional outbursts and not be able to calm down, right? So I always remind parents, like, let's have the right expectations. And when we realize that, it's easier for us to just give them some space to have their feelings and their emotions. So that is number one. Let them have space for the big emotions. A lot of times we want to help, but we jump too quickly to stop. Don't do that. Get control. Let me figure this out. Let me solve the problem. That's not what we should be doing at first. At first, we should be creating a safe space for them just to have their emotion. Most kids and teens are going to get through that emotion within 5 minutes or so. Now, sometimes it's like a big 20-minute outburst. We've all seen those. But in general, they're going to calm down. And then while their brain's not completely developed, it's certainly partially developed, and they're going to be able to access some of that. Okay, some of that, the insight, like, I want to get through this. So first we're thinking about the calming process, right? Like, let them have their emotion. Let's see how they calm down. Something I do with my kids, and I encourage parents to do, is I'll say, do you want help calming down? Like, to my 9-year-old, and this is about a 9-year-old, I'll say, do you want a hug now? So often she says yes. We just hug it out. Hug, I rock her, we just cuddle. Okay, so we got through the emotion. And now we can deal with what's at hand. So then we can teach them about talking things out, right? So what happened that upset you so much? And maybe, asking them questions about the issue and helping them to form solutions, right? Now, if they're being aggressive in their outburst, if they're hurting themselves or others, of course we then need to intervene, right? So we don't want to let that process go too far. A big bear hug for young kids can be really helpful in containing them if they have become out of control. I've had short parents tell me that their tall teenagers are too physically overwhelming for them. And so then you have to obviously step out and give them space. You don't want to get hurt yourself, right? But again, so often it's about letting them have their process to move through it. There are some great researchers who talk about the emotional tunnel. If you imagine an emotional experience is like a tunnel, you walk in, you got to get out the other side. If we don't let them get out the other side, they stay stuck in that tunnel and it's echoing. But if we let them get through, then we're going to be able to get to the resolution, and so once they're calm, we can talk about, healthy ways of expressing emotions. We can talk about, the issue. And so, when I hear this question, we tell our child no, and they get really angry. Don't jump to the conclusion that my child can't accept no. Let's just recognize that your child's having big emotions and needs to express them first. And then you can deal with the issue at hand, what the no is about. So hopefully that helps this parent to kind of reframe the perspective on how they're seeing their child.
Yeah, I think that reframing is compelling, particularly this idea that you said at the beginning of that question, Lauren, which is like, have realistic expectations for your children's emotions. I know sometimes I have a 5-year-old who's wildly emotional, but maybe he's just a 5-year-old. But it's hard in that minute to give them that space, because we do want to intervene right away. And so it sounds like maybe that's a skill that takes practice, right? Knowing, like, showing a little restraint and not intervening, maybe.
Exactly. It does take practice. You have to catch yourself the next time you're trying to intervene and just say, hang on, like,
Yeah.
let's let him have his emotion. Let me step back. And just watch his process. Like, if we could approach it with curiosity instead of like our own fear and anxiety around, oh no, what's happening to my kid? Or how is this interfering with my peaceful morning? Like, just, okay, he's a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 9-year-old. She's having, this outburst. Let's just see what happens here. Like, if I cannot get wrapped up in their process, I win. right? I can take control,
Yeah.
but it's human nature to get wrapped up, especially if you're running out the door to work or school, but we really have to work hard to catch ourselves, and to be able to do that better is to give them that space. And if you have older siblings that can get involved in a helpful way, very powerful. Like, let them get involved. Sometimes they'll say, like, what are you doing? Like, you're messing up my stuff. Like, just calm down. And sometimes younger siblings can respond much more positively to older siblings than they do to parents in those moments. So just another something to try.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, you know, initially, the reason why we were excited to collaborate with you, or the genesis of that collaboration, came out of the school district's concern for student social media use. We've just seen an uptick not only in use, but in concerning behaviors as a result of that use,
Yeah,
particularly around social media like TikTok. And so this next question asks, how can we help students deal with images of what's real or not based on their TikTok viewing experience? So
okay.
we've had a couple of issues this year where parents were gratefully really honest with us and said, my child doesn't watch the news. We shy away from some of these conversations at home. And so when he sees something on TikTok around violence or school violence, he's not sure what's real and what's not. And I guess it's easy to kind of brush that off and say, how could that be? But if you're really heavily consuming those images over and over and over again, I guess it does make a lot of sense. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so I guess some thoughts, Lauren, on how to help
Yeah.
kids deal with images of what's real or not based on their TikTok viewing.
Yeah, absolutely. And now more than ever, we don't know what's real or not. And we know now, with the introduction of AI and ChatGPT and these other programs that can create images, we really don't know what's real or not. We really have to make sure that we're looking at reputable sources and that we're talking to our kids about it. Anyone could create an image of anyone right now. They could put you on the top of Mount Everest and say you were there yesterday. So we really have to be aware and be talking to our kids about it. So it is an open conversation. Um, you know, what is the most funny thing you see on TikTok? Show me, right? And has there been anything that's been concerning, upsetting to you? And help them to understand what they saw, talk it out with them, and also help them to limit the social media use, right? If they're following accounts that are showing images of violence, or showing images of diet content, right? That we want them to not follow those accounts. We want to talk to our kids about that. I don't want you following that stuff. That's not helpful. That's going to make you feel upset or bad about yourself. So, I don't want you to watch that. And that's why we also want to limit TikTok, to 30 minutes a day. Like, 30 minutes is enough for the laughs and the fun, here and there. You don't need to be on it for hours and hours, because we know that TikTok mastered the algorithm. So they know if someone watches a short video for, let's say, a minute and 15 seconds instead of just 10 seconds, that content was really drawing them in. Doesn't mean it's good content. It could be violent content, right? Like we see with boys. It could be diet culture and beauty content like we see with teen girls. But since they watched it for a minute and 15 seconds, the next video they show them is going to be the same topic. So on and on and on. And now our kids are sucked in and down this rabbit hole of content that can be harmful to them. But the algorithm is doing it because the company is designed to keep people, whether they're kids or teens, on as long as possible. So we have to teach our kids about that mechanism, about what's happening there with that algorithm, and explain to them why it's not healthy and why we want to protect them. So again, it's that open conversation, really limiting the tech, asking them to show you, examples. Now, when it comes to, I do have to spend a couple more minutes on the diet culture and beauty content, because what we know from the research is that teen girls who spend 3 or 4 hours a day on social media are 3 times more likely to be depressed, or worse, have suicidal thoughts. Okay. So teen girls that are spending a lot of time on social media are more likely to be depressed or suicidal, and to have a negative body image. And it's because of what I just described. There's a really great campaign that the company Dove, the soap company, has created. Dove has had a self-esteem project campaign running, I think, for almost 20 years, which is a wonderful thing. More recently, they did a campaign around beauty content and social media. And if I can, Mr. Arlington, I have a 3-minute video of theirs that I'd love to show right now. It's really compelling. So I'm going to click over to that if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Great. So let's view that, and then I'll, come up and wrap up with this question.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Great.
Make yourself comfortable. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, how do I want to sit? This.
Water there. You need a drink.
I don't want to ruin the lipstick.
Oh yeah.
Social media can be good, but it can be bad as well.
In terms of her building her confidence, it can build her confidence.
Margie is just trying to find herself now, She's not influenced by social media yet.
Most of the influencers that I've seen have definitely had a positive impact on me.
Hey guys, here's a beauty hack I'm obsessed with. I am so happy.
Look at how cinched my waist is. Look at how flat my stomach is.
It's the shortcut to flawless skin.
You know that Botox doesn't just reduce wrinkles, right? Baby Botox is amazing. You're never too young to start.
That is not me.
There are these great powders. They stop you feeling hungry so you can always skip breakfast and lunch.
And you have to treat yourself to a chemical peel. They're a total glow up. They burn away the top layers of your skin and let new skin grow through.
Hey, I'm Mojo. If your teeth are uneven, you can always file them down with a nail file. It's literally so simple.
Fighting your teeth.
Don't put up with your thin lips, sweetie. Lip filler kits let you inject yourself at home. They're my total go-to.
Fake eyelashes are so easy to glue on if you cut your eyelashes off.
There's some really great pills you can use.
Keep telling yourself you're not hungry, you're just thirsty.
Never look bloated again.
Book it into your skin.
Sexiest lashes.
Botox. Remember, skinny is never finished.
Oh.
It's
Have you actually seen stuff like that?
yeah, a lot. This stuff is on every girl's feed. They're watching, right? I mean, at night when I can't see them.
It's scary to me that my kids are watching this and they think that's how they have to look.
I saw one of the teeth filing videos. I remember that one. I remember seeing that all over. I know this stuff. I can't prevent them from seeing these, but I can talk to them about it.
100% always be talking. And have Peyton know that she can always ask me anything.
My mom has taught me not to listen to people like that and to be proud of who I am.
Okay.
So powerful. Yeah.
Really powerful, and so well done. And, I think the takeaway is our teen girls are being exposed to toxic beauty content all the time. And we have to have conversations with them to help them understand why that's there. It's advertising. The more likes they get and the more time they get, the advertising money is connected to that. So they keep serving it up. And most importantly, we have to remind them that those messages are unhealthy, toxic, and not what we believe. That they're perfect the way they are. That they don't have to change the way they look. They don't have to change their bodies. And this is also why we only want them to spend 30 minutes a day on this stuff and to pick accounts that make them feel good about themselves to follow. Like the moms pointed out, right? My kids are in their room at night and they're scrolling and scrolling, and this is what they're seeing. And this is what is, really getting, kind of soaked into their minds. And that's what we want to avoid. So we put a time limit on it. We talk to them about it, and we keep the phones out of the bedrooms at night. And whether we're talking about, toxic beauty advice or gun violence or, disturbing, images of aggression, that we want to protect our kids from these things. We would never have those things playing on the TV in the home where everyone hears. And this is just so powerful because it's right on their phone, that they're holding. And again, right, coming back to, this is why it's so important as parents to protect our kids, because the technology companies are not doing that for us.
Thanks, Lauren. That was a really, really compelling video and really powerful too. Yeah. This next question asks about screen time. I know this is something that's a struggle in my own house, right? Because screens are everywhere. So we say to our kids, you can have an hour on the Nintendo Switch. And then when they finish, they ask to go on the Kindle or their Chromebook, because screens are just everywhere. They're not understanding that it's all screen time. So how can you, this person asks how parents can limit their child's screen time when, again, screens are sort of ubiquitously omnipresent?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think it comes down to this related to this family media plan we spoke about earlier, where we sit down and talk about it, but I want to address in this question, screens are everywhere and kids generally resist. What this is telling me is that the kids in this family are not clear about why there are limits and what those limits are. So, for example, let's take the weekend, because the weekend's a time that can just get away from parents, right? You want to have a conversation, with your kids about what your family values are around screens on the weekends. So, for example, in our home, we're not going to use screens until we've done other things, until we've done our chores, until we've had fun family time. Maybe we're visiting someone, maybe we're going out, maybe there's some school project we're working on. And then towards the end of the day, when we're done with that, like real life living, you can have some relaxing leisure screen time. And that's exactly what I've been doing in my home, for 14 plus years. And it works really well. So, my 14-year-old, he knows that there's not a question, and his life has changed. He has schoolwork he does and things, but my 9-year-old is still really a part of that younger, age. And she never, ever even asks or thinks to pick up a device until the late afternoon, because that's how we do it. That's it. And so that's the type of thing that you can establish and slowly kind of over time move to that. Remember, you're the parents, you make the decisions. And remember also that it's hard to go against the norm, but you have to go against the norm if you believe in it. So what's happening in a lot of homes is that there aren't limits, that parents aren't aware. Or maybe there are some homes where, there's some trauma happening and the screens, are there as a coping mechanism. But in your home, right? If you're a parent that says no, I want to take control of this, then you need to, and you need to realize that not everyone around you is going to. And so you have to make it clear. Another tip is, if your kids are on screens and it's time to get off, you really have to kind of strategize, how can I make this transition easy? My son used to say to me, I want a snack. When it's time to get off, give me a snack. There was something in him that just knew that having a snack was something else that was satisfying and fun and sensory. And that would help him just to kind of let go of that, that place where you're zoned into, whatever it was, Minecraft or YouTube or other games or, anything that they're doing online. So, try to think about how am I going to transition away from that, but then also just really calmly and clearly enforcing your guidelines. So if there's a 2-hour limit and you give them a 5-minute warning and they don't get off, you could tell them, if you're not off in the next 5 minutes, you're going to lose it tomorrow, or you lose 10 minutes tomorrow, like however you want to, play with that. If you can use Wi-Fi controls in your house, you could actually just shut the internet off. So I use Google Home Wi-Fi network. And through that system, I can name each device. So I have a computer for my kids, or there's an iPad, or there are, phones. And each device you can choose, what time it loses internet. So, that's it, right? It's done. Or like, for example, it doesn't go on until 3 p.m. and then it's off at 5 p.m. and that's it. So if you can, you can get some help online or ask your Wi-Fi provider how to use those parent controls. They are incredibly effective. Like, it takes the fight out of it. And I really think that is helpful. And, the last thought about this is, creating like sort of this culture of openness around screens, having computers in common areas. If kids are on iPads, don't send them to their room with the door shut for hours. Have them on the living room couch or in the kitchen. Pop over, see what they're doing. Create that culture of like talking about what's going on technology, and show me what's fun. Or if something ever upsets you, like I've told my kids, if something ever upsets you, you could just close out the browser right away and you can come talk to me about it. So just letting them know that these things might happen. Sometimes I use the analogy that, the internet can be like going to New York City and walking around. I'm going to sometimes make sure that I'm holding your hand, or, I want to protect you from people. And you let me know if anything weird happens, and I can help you navigate that. So, hopefully those are some other tips that can help parents, with the culture of screens that we have, and really making that plan to maximize real life activities, and make screens sort of like, that's what we get to when we're done with all the other good stuff. And we get there at the kind of like the end of the day, we could all relax and have some entertainment.
I like this idea that I haven't thought of before, of the transition time between screen time and, as you said, real life living. So that liminal space, how can we make that more appealing to get them off the screens and into the real world?
Yeah, put out a snack on the table. It's so common for kids to be cranky when they're coming off their screens. They were in, right, especially the young ones. They were in this very passive mode where they were very stimulated without having to do anything. And so it's like annoying. I gotta either do something, or chore or a homework, or just even come and sit at the table for dinner. So having some kind of fun transition, but if they're having big emotions about it, just giving them their space to get through it. There's many a meltdown for a toddler or a 5, 6, 7-year-old around taking the iPad away. Just let them get through it, and they'll move on.
And the next question, Lauren asks how we can explain to students what they see on the news, particularly around school violence. And I know we face that a lot here, right? Something will happen involving technology or social media, and the adults think it's egregious and really problematic. And some students are so jaded or have become so numb to what's been normalized that it doesn't affect them. And that's like another layer of our concern. But yeah, explaining to students what they see on the news around school violence or anything sort of troublesome. What are ways parents can have those conversations?
Yeah, it's a great question, because we do live in a digital information age where everyone can access anything all the time, and there are a ton of violent and sensationalized images and videos all over the place. So first of all, I just want to say, I think it's really important to protect kids from media, from news media. For elementary age, there's no reason for them to be exposed to news networks on the TV, or news. The best way to provide them with current events is from your mouth at a very, or from teachers at a very age appropriate level. So we will tell them, just the general basic information that they might need to know in order to stay safe, right? So if there was going to be an earthquake, right? We would teach them about how to stay safe, but we wouldn't show them images of, destruction or people who have been injured or died, after that. So, that's really important. I had a mom come up to me at the end of a presentation I did a couple months ago. And she said, I really want my children to be educated and informed. So we leave CNN on in our house all the time. And I, inside was like horrified, but so glad she came up to me because I really helped her to understand and shift her perspective. The news on news outlets is designed to be dramatic and sensationalized for ratings. They need to keep people watching. Okay. So her intention was so good. She wants to keep her children educated and informed. That's not the best way, because she started to tell me that her kids had anxiety, that they were asking her, is there going to be a shooter at the mall? Is there going to be someone bad, that tries to grab me? Because the news is, again, like really highlighting that to a degree that is not typical or normal. So keep the news off, get news from trusted written sources. If you choose as an adult to watch the news yourself, that's your prerogative. I really would keep kids away from it and make sure, that it's age appropriate. Now, that being said, if they have seen scary things, then again, talk to them about their feelings about it. Don't just jump to explaining the content. Talk to them about what happened. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they feel nervous. Maybe they're confused about why people would do bad things in the world, and it becomes a conversation about human nature, or if you have religious values, or existential thoughts for teenagers about, the meaning of life. So make sure you're having, the conversations about how it affected them, not just about who did what and why things happen. And, we can really get wrapped up in the content and then miss the process. It's called miss the emotional experience. So, validate those feelings, offer hugs, offer positive words of encouragement. A great thing to say to kids, if there is something scary that's happening in your family or in the world, is this too will pass, right? This will change. This is going to end. And I'm here to get you through it. Like, I'm here to be with you the whole time. We have each other. That's all that matters. My teenage son, recently was struggling a little bit with some social stuff, some academic stuff, and things were just really emotional. And we had long conversation, him and my husband and I. And then, the next morning, I just wanted to tell him to just remember that the most important thing is that we have each other, that we love each other. Everything else we can get through. And I wish someone said that to me when I was struggling as a teenager, and I'm grateful that, all of my training has helped me to remember to come back to those feelings and that support and encouragement when our kids are feeling, scared or confused.
I think teaching this too shall pass is another way of building resilience in kids. Okay?
Exactly. It's so right. And for kids and teenagers, they're very in the moment more than adults. Like we're always thinking ahead and behind. So we have to remind them, like, this won't be this way forever. I promise you, like, in a few minutes, a few hours, definitely a few days, like it's going to be all different. We will feel better. And that's the wisdom we have as adults and parents, is that we've been through those hard times and they do change and they get better. And so we have to, that's our job as a parent, is to give them that wisdom, to reassure them, even if we can't solve every problem for them, which we certainly can't.
That idea about talking about feelings and not just content, I think, is one that will stick with me as a dad, because I know we limit our daughter's exposure to the news. She's in 2nd grade, but sometimes she comes home knowing what's happened in the world because a friend was watching the news at home and shared it with her. And so we can control that as much as we try. Rather, we can control how we respond to it. And so, I just like that idea that I think I'll think more about.
Exactly. No, that is perfect, right? It's like how we respond. We can't control everything, that's for sure, but help them to process those feelings, to get through that, is exactly right.
Yeah, I kind of see these last 2 questions as maybe tangentially related, so maybe we can bundle them together.
Sure.
One is about Someone asks how to improve self-esteem and self-worth in my children and how they can help their daughter have more confidence in everything she does. And the other one is just about having a daughter maybe listen more to her parents.
Great. Yeah, I do think they're certainly interrelated. So improving self-esteem and self-worth is so important, especially in this day and age, because our kids, live in a world where they don't go out and work, work in the fields or work in the shops or in the bakery or in the butcher so much, right? Like we have this beautiful opportunity where all our children are in school and they're learning. And at the same time, because of our digital culture and the way that our communities have evolved, they're also not just like running around playing on the streets so much either. And so in order for our kids to develop good self-worth and self-esteem and what's called self-efficacy, which means they believe that they can make a difference, we need to make sure that we're giving them opportunities in the world to feel like they're useful and to help and to be a part of things that are important to them. I know that the parent said, like, I want my daughter to have confidence in everything she does. First of all, no one's gonna have confidence in everything they do. We don't either, right? So again, it's like adjusting those expectations. But then really thinking about your child and what they're gifted at or what they like, and giving them opportunities to do that out in the real world as much as possible. If they love animals, as they're getting older, maybe they want to volunteer at a shelter, or maybe they just want to go help the neighbor feed the cat when they're away, right? But really knowing that our kids are capable of a lot and they need more jobs, they need more responsibility. We always want to make things easy for them, but by doing that, if we make it too easy for them, we rob them of the opportunities that they need to build resilience and to build this self-confidence and self-worth. So give them chores, give them jobs, get them out in the community doing things that they're interested in doing. We don't want to force them to do things, that they don't like. But, the children in our families need to feel like they're a useful part of our family. That if they didn't do the things they do, it wouldn't be as good. It would be harder for parents. It wouldn't be as fun. So, everything from, little chores, emptying the dishwasher and bringing out the garbage, to more collaborative opportunities like, we're going to be painting the deck. We want your help. And this is where, parents have to, kind of control that instinct to do everything perfectly and not have it all get messed up. It's got to get a little messed up. That's how you teach them, And so if you have to paint over something again, you do. If you're fixing the car, have them be a part of it. If you're, the other day, my daughter pointed out that the handle on the window crank was falling off and loose. So I looked and I saw that there was a screw. I said, oh, it needs a screwdriver. We get the screwdriver, the Phillips head I described as her. And I said, do you want to do it? She did it. She did a great job. I checked to make sure it worked. Done. She felt so good. She was so happy. And it's just an example of something so small, but really impactful. And we need to get our kids doing more of these things in our homes and in our schools and in our communities. They will feel good about themselves. And that this is like the really important way that we're combating what's happening on social media, where they're constantly getting these messages that they're not good enough, they don't have enough likes, they don't look the right way. We want them to be getting feedback in their real life that they're so helpful and that they're cared, they're loved, and that they're really appreciated, right? So even in our schools, having teachers call upon kids to take charge of things more and more is great for the kids, and also hopefully helpful, for the teachers. And so the second part of this is the other question, which is like, my daughter's not listening to me. My kids are not listening to me. Like, why? And I'll tie it back to what we said earlier. There's probably a lack of mutual respect. Now, again, the parent's the parent and the child's the child, right? The parent makes the decisions. But if there is not, if they don't feel like they're seen or listened to, they're going to tune you out. If you're doing a lot of yelling and telling and commanding, they're going to tune you out. There needs to be conversations. There needs to be less criticism and direction from parent to child. Like, let them try and mess up and try again. Give them more space. So catch yourself if you're talking too much, and it's really a very simple way of just thinking about it, I catch myself all the time, you know, and I don't give the feedback. My son's cutting his bagel with the knife. I would have done it slightly different. Like, I tell myself, like, shush, don't say anything.
Yeah.
And my son happens to be very sensitive to our feedback, like really takes it to heart. So I have to really like rein that in, because it's making him self-conscious about what he does. So I stopped doing it, so that he can feel good and be himself. So stop giving so many commands. Listen more, listen more to what they're saying, connect with those feelings, do things together. Your kids are going to start then listening to you more. And it might be a little, you may have to break some habits, or it might seem counterintuitive, right? Like if I stop talking, then they're going to listen. But it is true. And there's an art to parenting. And a lot of parents have lost the art because they've been trying too hard to help their kids be comfortable or achieve, right? But if we kind of step back and let ourselves just relax into the bond and the relationship, there is an ease, and then your own artistic style of parenting can come through. And that's what I really hope for everyone. That's what I really hope that everyone, can achieve in all this. And Mr. Arlington, I'll end by saying, don't feel overwhelmed as a parent. Yes, we're talking about all these different strategies and nuances, but when it comes down to it, the most important thing is that you love your child and that they feel loved and connected to you, and all these other things, will fall into place. But just make sure that they feel supported and loved and that they can be themselves in your home. That is truly the most important thing, that will help them to feel secure, connected, and be, a happy, healthy child for the years to come.
I'm really appreciative that you ended that way, because so much good advice and so many things to think about have been shared. And it could be, as a parent, a little bit overwhelming, right? Like, oh, I don't do this, or I overteach, or I intervene too much. But kind of anchoring all of this guidance to loving and caring for and connecting to your kids as the nexus of the work of being an effective parent, I think is really a great way to end. Yeah.
Great. And if you're doing that, then like everything else is just, right? Like just like the icing, on the cake, so It makes it a little bit easier because we know we all have that capacity to love and to listen.
Yeah. Lauren, thanks so much for your time today and for the 3 sessions in total. We're so lucky to have had you share your expertise and your wisdom. And I hope that we can collaborate with you again sometime soon. Thank you.
My pleasure. I hope to see you again in the future.